Hello, and welcome to my new series, Game They Need to Make, where I will talk about my ideas for games they need to make. It's kind of self-explanatory, really. I want to get right into it. So I'm Kloudy from EKG, and this is the Legend of Zelda game they need to make. So originally, I had this grand idea where the game would be focused around playing as each member of the Triforce wielders, being Link, Zelda, and Ganon. But as I tried to come up with the game's mechanics and such, I ran into a bunch of problems and realized it really wouldn't work, so I thought, how can I fix this? And it seemed easy, really, cut characters. Like, if people want to play as Link, I think they have some options. And honestly, I hadn't really thought too hard on Ganondorf's playstyle and how he'd work. And then it hit me. So the working title of my Zelda game is The Legend of Zelda, The Last Sheik. Or something like that, something, because fucking we're playing as Zelda and Sheik, bitches! So the game would center around a reincarnation of Princess Zelda, who, with training from her guardian Impa, learns the ways of the Sheikah and becomes Sheik. So you'd also have the ability to play as Sheik. Why did I write that like that in my script? That is so redundant. Anyway, so right off the bat, let's talk about the main mechanics of this game. We would have temples like a normal Zelda game built around each of the characters' abilities. Both characters would have upgradable stats like speed, hitting power, magic, defense. Both characters would have weapon upgrades, armor upgrades, and skill upgrades, with Sheik having the majority of the weapon upgrades and utility upgrades, where Zelda has more of the skill upgrades. And the way to get these upgrades would be rupees. This makes rupees a hell of a lot more valuable, and a lot of enemies would drop them, making fighting enemies more useful. And both characters, and this is the main mechanic, both characters could be used exclusively through the majority of the game. Now this is a big one, so let's take some time to talk about it. Now, I want to have multiple ways to play this game. You can play exclusively as Zelda, focusing more on your magic and skills, or exclusively as Sheik, focusing on the weapons and skills and stealth, or a style where you trade off as you feel like it. This includes boss battles and puzzles. Obviously, there will be sections where you have to play as one, i.e. a stealth section for Sheik or magic puzzles for Zelda, but I want most, if not 99% of scenarios, enemies and bosses to be able to be handled by either one. So, let's talk about each form, their weapons and skills individually. First, let's talk about the princess herself, Zelda. So what do we know about Zelda? She's wise, uses magic, and is an archer sometimes. So let's implement this into how she handles her weapons. I would imagine she would have a rapier type sword, I think that's how you say it, used primarily for counterattacks and stabbing. This wouldn't be the most effective weapon, but something that could easily handle basic enemies. It can be upgraded to be able to counter bigger attacks and do more damage, etc. She would also have her bow, which would have different upgrades, letting you use magic arrows and boosting the damage output and draw speed of her arrows and how many arrows she can shoot at once, little things like that. Now, the big thing with Zelda is her skills. We are going to give Zelda the 3 main spells from Ocarina of Time, but each one is going to have 3 utilities, an offensive, a defensive, and I would like to call it an other usage. Each one of these could be upgraded and eventually be used in conjunction with arrows. As an example, Pharah's Wind at level 1 with an arrow could send all enemies in the radius of fire flying backwards and knocking them down, but at level 3 it could produce a green mist and stun all the enemies, also knocking them down in the entire room. So you'd see each one would have a different capability and different thing as you level them up. Now, let's talk about our favorite Sheik. Now, before we get into Sheik, I want to explain. I think Sheik should handle very much like Nightwing does in the Arkham series. He's quick, acrobatic, and it's just a blast to control. So giving Sheik a similar feel and possibly even the fighting style without ripping off Arkham too much could be a lot of fun, utilizing counters and that flowing from enemy to enemy system. But obviously, I don't want Sheik to hit as hard. But before we get into that, let's get into her weapons. I want to give Sheik dual blades, short blades, maybe like long knives at best, that would be used to do a lot of chip damage as you bounce around from enemy to enemy. I want to give her poison needles. They'd be used to stun enemies. They have unlimited ammo, and they're used from any distance, but very weak, and these wouldn't be upgradable. These are basically her like stock weapon. Ninja stars, or shurikens. Sheik's ranged weapon. It would be much faster than the arrows, but do a lot less damage. Upgrades would increase the size and damage of them, but I don't want them to be comparable to the arrows, really. These would also be capable of combining with the magic spells, but it would use more of your magic to do so, and I'll explain why in a minute. And this is also the only time Sheik can use any type of magic. Now, some other weapons she'd have: Smoke Bomb / Deku Nuts. Her chain could be used to grapple weapons away from enemies. The Lens of Truth, used to be able to see hidden passages and also see enemies who are behind objects. Basically a knockoff of Detective Vision. Again, Sheik should handle very much like Nightwing. Now, onto the game. Optional tutorial section. This is fucking huge. Nothing kills a game's replay value more than an unskippable tutorial section. Twilight Princess. This could be done using young Zelda training with Impa, who could basically teach you how to use both characters. Now, the first 3 and last 5 temples can be tackled in any order. Now, I'm all for exploration and open world feel, and because we aren't worrying about items letting us get through dungeons like we often find ourselves doing in modern Zelda games, we could tackle them in any order now. Now, I'm not huge into stories in games. Obviously, I love well-written stories, but cutscenes are just to me, usually. So, here's an example of a cool way you could use gameplay to tell an awesome story using this game. So, let me paint a little mental picture for you. So, once you beat the 3rd temple, you would be faced with a phantom puppet fake version of the main villain. For the sake of this video, let's just say it's Ganondorf, but it doesn't have to be. It could be an original villain, which would actually be kind of cool. And now we would have a scripted loss. It would add a feeling of helplessness and dread, and it would only be activated like this playable cutscene when you're almost dead. Like, I'm talking that last 4th of heart piece. Like, you throw everything you have at this villain and just nothing. You see his health bar going down like centimeters. You're like sitting there wondering, am I even ready for this? It gives you the feeling that Zelda / Sheik would have in that situation. Hopelessness, helplessness, and dread. Now, when you finally get to that last little piece of heart piece, you would hear a noise. And then you would hear the main theme as a sword is unsheathed and the camera pans up to show Link, Master Sword in hand, ready to kick some ass. The Master Sword now would do huge damage to this guy and would allow you to also do damage now. So I can hear you saying, why would you make the Zelda this damsel in distress? Because, dum-dum, we're only 1/3 of the way through the game. So, 5 or more temples later, all buffed up and ready to take on the world, we meet up with Link outside the final boss's evil castle lair. Whatever cutscene, talking to Link, tell him to go fight the big bad guy, we'll do all the hard shit, and clear out all the enemies in this temple boss lair thing. So, we are done kicking all of the ass. We get to the final boss scene, right? We're getting to the final boss, we're ready to go, and we see Link getting his ass beat. And I almost want a scene, like, from Lord of the Rings, where Aragorn goes over the cliff with his horse, like, stuck to it. But I don't like that because I can't kill Epona. I am not the writers of Shadow of the Colossus. Link is out of commission, and bam! Your turn to fight. And you use one version or the other to take down the final boss. So now, the fact that we beat the villain whose fake form kicked our ass earlier shows the character growth, and it's something you felt along with Zelda or Sheik. I could go into a rant about how that's how cutscenes should be in games, but I gotta wrap this up, and that is for a different video. So I quickly want to say why I want this game. It has always bugged me how Sheik was the only in Ocarina of Time, and as a side character no less. It bugs me just how little action Zelda gets. Most of the time. This is the title character, and through her many reincarnations, there's gotta be one version that kicks some ass. So there it is, everyone. Nintendo, please steal this idea because this is definitely a game you need to make. Thanks for watching. Hey guys, Kloudy here. If you like this idea for both the game and the series, comment down below, let me know your thoughts. Honestly, I love talking to you guys about this stuff. Leaving a like, sharing, subscribing, all that stuff obviously helps, but as always, I'm just glad you're here watching. Thank you. See you next time.